Welcome to the RFT channel, and today we are making a surface swim bait, but we're going to do it with all hand tools. Now, I've gotten several requests for doing this out of all hand tools with no power tools, and I would imagine the reason is you want to make some of your own baits, but you don't have any tools to work with besides some simple hand tools, or at the very least, these are pretty cheap to get. So if you're just starting out with lure making, we're going to do kind of the simplest lure that you could probably make out of a wooden lure. And that is going to be just a simple swim bait. And we're going to also make it a surface bait, so we don't have to worry too much about weighting. Also, I need one of these in my tackle box, so you're going to make it today. So the pattern I am going to paint this up as is a brown trout, baby brown trout. Now, I don't want this to be a super small bait because small baits are actually kind of harder to work with, but I don't want it to be a giant bait either. So we're going to just make this, make it a 3.5 inch bait. That's a pretty decent sized bait. This is just a simple framing square. You don't need to do this. This is just so I have a nice straight working piece. I'm going to go ahead and draw this out, and then we'll cut it all at once, basically. Gonna narrow it down at the tail. I still want something to work with at the tail. And I have gonna make the joint. Actually, let's go ahead and use a square. Again, you can just eyeball this, but it's a little bit nicer to have everything in square, if you can. So we're going to go ahead and cut this. The straight cut, I'm going to just use this pool saw. I could also use something like my razor saws. We're gonna leave that now. We're not gonna cut that cut yet because it makes it so much easier to get to. So now we're using what's called a coping saw, and this is the hard part. So we're going to want to try to keep this as straight as possible. Like I said, you want to try to keep this as straight as possible in this direction. You don't want this to be tilted too much. So keep an eye out on that. One of the better ways to do that is to just kind of stand right over your work. Right. So now we've got it cut out. It's not too bad. You can see I do have a little bit of an angle to it, so we'll have to try to fix that a little bit. That's one of the advantages to doing this on like the bandsaw, because the table keeps it nice and up and nice and vertical. Now we need to clean this up. So this is where we would typically get out the belt sander and sand this down. When you're hand making stuff, it's going to take you a little bit longer to sand. That's the biggest drawback. We're starting off with some 3M sandpaper. This is the P60. So this is 60 grit. Well, I got this at Lowe's apparently. You can pick this up at hardware stores. The smaller the number, so 60, 25, those are all going to be coarser grits. The higher the number, 120, 300 something, those are going to be finer grits. If you're starting off doing this by hand, it's best to start with the coarse grit. So I'm doing the 60. And we're going to work our way down once we start to finish this lure. But for the most part, we're going to stick with the 60 grit just to get it to shape. And of course, we're just going to take it and start sanding it. Now, if we do this on a flat surface, we'll get a flatter body. And this is also where we can correct some of the issues with the cut that I made. We'll just have to be aware of kind of where I need to hold this. So I'm actually holding this where I have a little bit of a gap. The 60 does make quick work, and the fresher your sandpaper, the faster this will be as well. If you need to get into the curves, just fold your sandpaper over the edge and use that edge. All right, if you want to make sure you're doing it right, just get your square. One thing I want to show is I usually use beats. One thing I'm going to that is now we use that to prop it in the center. All right, so now we need to make a cut, a wedge. We're going to use our special razor saw here, and just going to keep it flat as we can. So this is the cuts I'm going to make to slender out the body. I'll probably sand the rest of it. Okay. So we're going to sand some of these issues out. Again, we're starting out with that 60 grit. One thing we don't want to do is sand this to a point. Alright, so we've got the shape sanded down, the sides. It's cleaned up. I don't see any rough spots from cutting. Again, I'm using the 60 grit sandpaper. It's a little stiff because this is brand new. And the biggest trick is getting it clamped without damaging the wood. So this is the bottom. I need a hook hanger, probably about the middle right here. And then we'll put a hook hanger here, and then a tie-on eye right there. So I got my micro bits here. Oh yeah, I can do that by hand. Alright, so we'll just do this by hand. That'll make it much easier. I could do a through wire, but problem with the through wire is it makes it hard to get weight in there, so. Look at that. All drilled out. Now, I believe you can buy these micro bits at Harbor Freight. I'm using my high detail cover. It's a cool length of breath. Let's see if you're going. That's a good one. Do I have this again? It's a gun, it's a fire sandpaper. It's a little bit to finish this side off, get my brads out. See what size eye I want. So this is a brad bit. You see it's got the point, and then it's got pretty much a flat surface here. These are great for doing eyeballs. Normally I have it on a power tool though. And normally I go backwards. I had a little tear out there. That's why I go backwards. Better to do this before I sand. Okay. A little bit more. That should work. So that side is carved, but we're going to go ahead and clean up all the faces on this and get it smooth. So the whole bait will get a good sanding. Just knock down those 320 or 60 grit lines that are in it. All right, there it is, all sanded. Looking quite a bit better. Got a nice fat belly on this to work with. They'll be good for putting weight in it. We've got it all ready. Now we need to actually go ahead and separate my two pieces. That's a pretty good cut. Yeah. I wasn't going to film this, but then I was like, oh, they'll think I cheated. Hey. Yeah. That's a good one. Nope. That's cheap. Oh, yes. What are you doing? There. I'm not sure how to work. I think I just hold it. That was easy. That would work really good for a worm. That's not what I'm doing though. So this is going to be another tricky part. We have weight to add. And let's see if we can get that in there the way we want to. I'm using a little micro hand gouge. You could also use a knife. This is going to work better for me, so I'm going to use this. Yeah, my lead weight that I'm using is actually from a duck weight. Yeah, you might be done. Right, short one, right? That's really wait. Wrong up. Okay. It's gonna be wider. It's working hard. I'm down part. I want to say do it. Alright, so we got done. In there. It's like everyone's got like. Usually it's on the background. Alright, that. Pretty close. See what we got. There you go. Oh, no. Alright, I got the cavity carved out. The weight fits in there. But I think I'm going to add just a little bit more. I'm going to try to hand drill a hole here and just shove it in there. Okay. Yeah. This is a medium super glue. And medium as far as viscosity goes. We're going to use some tools here. Try not to get this all over me. So I'm using my little clamp as a stand. These work good for that. This one? What have you done? Let's push in there. Right. Yeah. It's okay. Already. I just worked like that. So I went ahead and sealed the bait with super glue. That's that ultra thin super glue. Mainly because it's kind of cold outside, and if I used a polyurethane, it would take forever, and I'd probably have to take it inside. We're going to be using this plastic wood as a filler. One reason I like it over like doing the baking soda and super glue mix is, for one, this dries in like 15 minutes, so I can sand it after 15 minutes. And for another, it acts like wood, so when I go to sand it, it doesn't have like a raised spot where the super hard super glue and baking soda mix was. Lasts a pretty good while. Literally just gonna use my finger. Get that in there. Oh, yeah, that's what I was wondering. I probably should have done this first before I did the super glue, but you know, hindsight. This is that 320 sand grip. 320, I think. So we're not doing hand painting with the brush anymore on this bait. I tried a bunch of it. It just wasn't turning out good. One of the things I will note is if you're going to hand paint with a brush, you need some texture on it, because otherwise you're going to have to hand paint scales in, and that is not going to be fun. So we're going to go ahead and continue with the brown trout paint pattern on this. We're going to do a pretty realistic paint pattern. So the brown trout basically has a kind of goldish, I don't know, real light gold color on the undercoat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pearl copper with the Crayotex paints and the pearl white. I mixed 1:1 and thin down that gold color a little bit, and we're going to spray mostly the top. So next step we're going to do is we're going to add the pearl black sides. We're just going to darken it a little bit. I've got a mesh on for the scales. I'm also going to use a comb to get some stripes on it. If you look at the young brown trout pattern, they're not as golden and they have kind of a black hue. And it could just be this one that I'm looking at, but I kind of want to copy it because it looks cool. So, but it has this broken up, there we go. There's these broken spots in it, so that is what I'm going to do. Once I get this thing around here. Now the trick to using the comb is to not spray too hard, spray straight, and keep it in the same spot. Since it's already in my brush. So we're using this detailed moss green. We're going to go over the top. I want a little fin on this, so we're going to use my fin pattern. We're going to kind of go around the outside edge. So we're going to try to do some of these red dots. So we're going to use just the back of one of my disposable paint brushes. We're doing the opaque black spots. We're using the just plain old opaque black. We're going to be adding some golden glitter to our brown trout bait. Alright, so it's got the epoxy coat on. I went ahead and hand drilled this first hole just to see how it go. The epoxy hasn't cured super hard yet, so it's a good time to work with it. So I'm just taking this micro bit again, and because we're doing this all with hand tools, we're going to just hand drill this. Right a hole in there. I'm just going to do that. Good idea. I'll just wire inside it, see where it goes in. It is still stuck here, so. Yeah, I'm okay. Ready? You want some? Here we go. That was something. Here's still one more. Alright. We're out to give it a try. We'll see what the action is. Not quite a floater, more of a suspender. It likes to kick off to the side for some reason. Just all that. Rock bass. Ozark bass. Yeah, definitely Ozark. On a spinnerbait. Yeah, I lost my other bait, so focus. Well, at least I didn't go home fishless. I almost want to say it's the same fish. Whoa. I should go get my camera. Try not to do that too. Just getting some scale patterns. Well, I lost my lure and I caught 2 fish, so the skunk is off the year, so great news there.